Here we are for another update on my coding progress. Just another day coding, taking notes in the old workspace. Okay, so if you see over here, I have in the PC class, which was not done correctly last time. I think I just have this list of variables. I actually have stuff. I have a build character method built. If you can see there, it is invoking a new die roller for my die roller class and building 3 individual dice, 3 individual 6-sided dice, as you can see down here. And it rolls all of them together and adds them up and then assigns them to the different character statistics, just like you would if you were rolling for the pen and paper game. If you look, the variable input there is all set to 0 because normally it'd be taking in, if you go over here to the die roller class, you can see one of my die classes. Yeah, here we go. If you look in there, it shows you that it takes in the die modifier variable there as an argument, but I don't have any die modifiers set yet, so I am hard setting them in the PC class to 0 because you don't usually add anything to it when you roll character. I hard set some ints down here because once again I don't have all of the class chooser and everything built. And then I have another method here which is show character, which is just displays the character sheet. That's nothing here, it's just a bunch of print lines that prints out all the variables and stuff. Nothing fancy. If we go to combat, I can show you my other thing I've been doing. I have built a combat loop, which is something I really wanted to get done. So the combat loop starts here with this determine intent method. Creates a new console and creates this new choice here for the player, attack or flee. Reads it in, sets it all to lowercase so that I don't have to, it doesn't abnormally exit if they type it in weird or they capitalize it or they don't capitalize it, it'll still go to the next step. This little section here, this intent equals attack, that threw me for a while. I was building the if loop with intent equals as the equal sign, attack, and I didn't realize since intent was a string, you have to use this method from the string class to actually reference each individual character. So when it reads intent, it actually reads for the ATTACK. When I was doing it the other way, it just wasn't reading that value in. What this if loop does is once it gets that, it sets up this will attack to equal true, this boolean. And that's necessary for the combat loop later. The combat loop reads that, and if it sees that as true, it executes the loop. And here you have if, the second nested if statement, just basically setting it to false if they say flee. I really should set that to say if they say anything else but attack to not execute the combat. I'll have to do that later. And then I have a little debugging statement right there, just basically spitting out the intent string so I can see that it's actually getting sent correctly. You've already seen the get initiative method. That's my combat method. Now here, combat loop. Simple while loop. Checks the boolean. Make sure the boolean's set to true. Runs the get initiative method. Runs the melee combat method. And then loops back to determine intent to see whether or not it's going to execute the while loop again. And that's my breakout from the loop. And delve, which is my main class. Down here you can see I created a new combat instance called ambush, and then some system text, and then it runs the ambush, invokes the determine intent method, and then invokes the combat loop method. And I've already kind of freshly compiled it over here. I'll just compile it again just to make sure. Sometimes it doesn't do what I ask it to do. Well, I guess that's not true. Sometimes I'm a dumbass and don't do it right. Make sure they're both built. Oh, no errors. Thankfully, no errors. Where is it? There it is. Now we're going to execute my java.delve. And see here, once again, this is just me playing with classes. I created a whole bunch of weapons and armor just to see if the list would build, if it would actually build out all those classes, and it does. That wouldn't be the correct way to do it, really. I should be passing that into an array or something like that. I mean, that's just lazy coding. Here it's generating the character sheet and the attributes for the character. And then down here you can see the combat loop starting to execute. You are ambushed by a goblin in the first room. What do? Attack or flee? Let's say attack. And It says I got to go first from the initiative method. So it calls the combat loop. And the combat loop is calling my initiative method here to get initiative. And after it does all those comparisons, it spits it back out over here. And then runs the combat, my light combat loop, which is rolling 20-sided dice just like you would on the table. So let's see if my string things, I should automatically lowercase this. And it does. And then see, it keeps going and going and going. Ultimately, it'll go until one side or the other is dead, which will never actually happen because I haven't got around to setting that up yet. I know it's kind of lazy coding, but my goal is to have like an enemy database, and it pulls an enemy in from the enemy database, checks its stats, and then start assigning damage to it. I don't know if I'm going to get that far. Because, I mean, in all honesty, I don't see this really going anywhere. This is just me playing around and learning object-oriented programming and learning Java. So, I mean, doing all that work, building a database and calling the methods and stuff, I don't know. It might teach me about how to use a database with Java. I mean, Java's got some database built in. It's not SQL. I forgot what it's called. It's in my big bahonkin 800-page book over here I'm reading. I'm sure eventually I'll get to that. But yeah, that's it. It actually does work. You know, I type flee and it kicks me back out to the command prompt, so my loop's exiting correctly. Not too bad. It's actually a little mini object-oriented D&D game. Not complete by any means, but it could be. It would probably take me about a month to actually make it into a real D&D text-based game. But, like I said, I mean, I can't publish it. It's copyrighted work. I'm sure TSR, or sorry, Wizards of the Coast would sue the bejesus out of me if I put this out on the Android market. Anyways, that's all, and, you know, I'm going to keep coding, and I'll keep updating. And talk to you guys later.